Hey guys, welcome back. Well, the National is only about 4 months away. And, I've got my tickets, I've got my hotel, and I feel a little more prepared this year than I did last year, with last year being my first full time I've ever gone. Even if you're not going, this is kind of the time that people, I think, start thinking about it, what they want to get, what they're looking at, what you're going to do. A complete transition from what I did last year. Yeah, so this year I splurged for the VIP ticket, and that just affords me a little earlier entry, some other things like that. I just wanted to try it. Last year I did it day by day, and it was, a total new thing for me. It was wonderment. I just kind of stood back and took it all in. And I have a video about that, believe it or not. It was one of the first videos I did, and I put that down in the description if you'd like to see what my impressions were the first time I'd ever gone there. But anyway, this year I've got a little bit more of a better plan, more of a bigger idea. I've even got some cards that I want to look at, and I'd love to go through with you some of those cards that I'm looking for at the National this year. And they do tie into some of the videos we've done in some of the 70s cards, some of the 60s cards, and even some newer ones that I've become fans of, some players that, are modern day players, and I'd like to look for as well. So if you don't mind, let's jump into it and see what I'm going to be looking for at the National this year, 2026. So yeah, the first card I'm going to be looking at, 1975 George Brett. And, I fell for that card when I was doing the 75 series video. It was a great card. I loved it when I first saw it. And I've always admired George Brett. I thought he was a great player. I didn't really pay attention to him in the 70s. Obviously, I was a youngster, but growing up in the 80s, when I started getting the cards, George Brett was always one of those top players. Now, granted, I grew on the other side of Missouri. I grew up on the other side of Missouri. So I wasn't a huge Royals fan, especially in 1985. But I always had an affinity for George Brett because I thought he was a great player. So that'll be a card that I'll obviously really look for. And the fun is the chase and the journey finding it at the National. There's so many tables. There's just vast amounts of tables. And I will remember this year to mark down when I see them, because you don't buy the first one you see. You just look and look and look, and you get the best deal and you get the best card that appeals to you. I hope to get this slabbed. Obviously, I'm not going to get a 10, PSA 10 or a 9 or SGC 10. Those are too expensive. But, a 7, maybe an 8 is within reach. But that will be what I plan to look for at the National this year in Chicago. So, yeah, number 2 is actually 2 cards, but the same player. Growing up in the early to mid 80s, when I really started collecting, it was Don Mattingly for me. I grew up in the Midwest, wasn't a Yankees fan, but there was one guy in New York that I paid attention to a lot. That was Don Mattingly. I always thought his career was cut short. He had back injuries. I think that really slowed him down. He could have made the Hall of Fame. He may even make it. Maybe the Veterans Committee will pull him in. I don't know. That could happen. But he was a great player. I loved watching him play, and I collected his cards. And this year, I'm looking for the the 84 Fleer and the 84 Tops. Those are the 2 I don't have. And the funny thing is I did have those at once. And I remember specifically the 1984 Fleer. That was my favorite card of his. And I know it's very plain compared to a lot of other cards, especially from the 70s. We've seen a lot of those. But I loved that card, and I had that card. And I know the corners were rounded. It was not in great shape. I didn't care. And, you grow older, you box your cards up, you move out, you get married, whatever. And who knows where that card went. And I never found it again. So I'm determined at the National to find those 2 cards. Last year, I did find at the National a 1984 Donruss Don Mattingly rookie, which is another, key card in his collection. I really like that card. So I did get that card last year for a pretty decent price. So that's one of the cards, well, 2 of the cards that I'll be looking for across the vast amounts of dealers at the Nationals this year in Chicago. And the third one is I've been collecting, or I've been starting, because listening to a lot of you guys in the comments have really inspired me to collect sets. So I started to collect the 1965 Tops. I just like the pennant look on 65. I did a video on that. Check it out. It's a good series. I really like the design. It's not incredibly difficult to attain as far as a collection. And I'm not looking to collect, PSA 8s or whatever and above for my collection. I'm just collecting them. And like you guys have told in the comments, and I've seen on other videos, I bought a binder. I'm going old school, back in the binder, back in the sleeves, in the 9 hole, yeah, the 9 pocket sleeves for your binder. I'm going that way with it. I've started, it's very small, but the one card I'd like to get at the National, and I'll probably get it once again in a slab, maybe not. I don't know if I see a good price on one, but it's the 65 Mickey Mantle. One of the higher end cards for that series. And I'd like to find that and get that. And like I said, you're probably seeing my pattern here. I'm not a huge spender. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm looking for cards that I want. And, with the 65 Mantle, I may even see some of the other cards in 65 that I want to get, some of the other rookies, perhaps. Who knows? It's all when I get there and see what I see. And, obviously they have the little bins where you can look and pull cards out too. So who knows? I may do that as well. But that's the third card I'm really going to look for to start or to really put a big dent in my collection of 1965 tops. Okay, number 4, we're kind of moving up now to modern cards. Um, I got back into the collecting like a lot of us did in, when COVID started. Videos started popping up, things started popping up about cards. And for good or bad, it got me back into collecting. It got me to pull out my old cards, take a look at them. And when I was doing that, I was always a huge fan of Mike Trout. I loved how he played. Hard nosed, tough player, good player, very good guy. And believe it or not, he's a huge baseball card collector. Now, I don't know if he collects vintage. I think it's more earlier stuff, obviously. And I know he's collecting with his son because I've seen, little tapes and videos of him doing that, which I just think is great. So I know he's a card collector, but I've been a huge fan of his, and I started collecting more and more of his cards. Well, in 2020, I had a couple boxes of cards that I hadn't looked at in forever. And, lucky enough, there was a Mike Trout, the famous 2011 Mike Trout update rookie card. I had that graded, got a 9. I was happy for it at the time. I got that put away with my other cards. But I've always been a huge fan of Mike Trout. So what I'm looking for and I looked for this last year. I didn't pull the trigger on one. I found a really nice one. I'm looking for a Mike Trout auto card, and I prefer an on-card auto, but I'll be looking for one of those. He's got a pretty good start to the season right now, but we'll see what happens there. I've always admired his career, and I've always enjoyed watching him, and those are one of the cards that I'm going to be looking to get. Okay, and finally, and this is my small list, like I said, we're going to go back to 1974. And believe it or not, I'm looking for the Dave Winfield rookie card for 1974. I like the card. I've always liked Dave Winfield. I can't say I was a huge fan of his, but I followed him. I knew who he was. But when I did the video for 74, for some reason, I really, really liked the look of that card, just the stoic look of him in that card, and it drew it to me. And I think that's as collectors. It's not just the players, for me, Mike Trout, that's a player that I love to collect and I love to keep tabs on. But there's also players that you just admire and you think, I just liked how they played. I like the card. So yeah, I'm going to be looking for the 74 tops, maybe, I don't know, PSA 5, SGC 5, I don't know, something mid-grade. I think with vintage, it's all about look. In my opinion, how it looks, the color, the brightness. It's not about, well, is the corner this dinged? Is it centered perfectly? It's just, how does it look to you? Is it appealing to you? So that's what I'm looking for when I go to these two. And I've got 3 days, and I realize the National is spread out. It's huge. But I'm going to take my time this time because I have more days, have more time. And with some of the perks that come with some of the tickets that you get, you have time you can rest. They have rest areas and little areas you can hang out as opposed to going back to your hotel like I did last year. And, you get tired and you go back to your hotel and sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to get back there right now. I just want to rest a little bit longer. So, but that's what I'm going to plan on doing. And that's going to give me time to get all these 5 cards that I've discussed in the video and check them out and see what I can find. So you can see that the 5 cards that I've picked, a lot of those came from what I saw when I did those videos. Just looking at those and going, I really like that card. And I didn't probably know much about it until I researched. And I do a lot of research for the videos, and I enjoy looking into those sets because when I was younger, I didn't pay attention to those. I was in the 80s. I did the 80s. But as I've gotten older, I've really grown to love and respect the older cards. And a lot of those that you see I'm going to pick up are from those older sets. So, that's what we're going to be doing at the National this year, and I'll bring you along. So, look for those videos as we get closer. My wrap up videos, like getting their videos. This is going to be a fun time, and you're more than welcome to join. We'll get back to the card series, the documentaries we put out for the cards. We're getting back to those. I'm not leaving those. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you down the road, and we'll see you at the National maybe.